for stepping by the session here. Today, we're going to be talking about how to evolve IT systems from a necessary, mandatory cost center into an innovation center that actually returns real ROI to the business. And I really hope I can give you some great things to talk about. And I promise it won't be about AI, so maybe it'll be a little refreshing. So my name is Eric Helmer. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Rimini Street. Anybody heard of Rimini Street or familiar with Rimini Street? Okay, great. If you're not familiar with Rimini Street, we started this company back in 2005. And we set out to solve a very major issue that we have specifically with PeopleSoft. And the issue is that PeopleSoft charges a lot of money every year for that manual and support and maintenance for the support and maintenance service that they have. And the value that they give people with that is not very great, right? They give you a bunch of documentation, it's a lot of self-support, you've got to look things up yourself. They say, oh, just upgrade to the next version, maybe your problem goes away. Really, these are not realistic, right, for many people. So we solved that problem. So we do a better support experience for folks so our customers no longer renew their annual maintenance and support agreements with these vendors, and instead we provide a much better support experience. We have about 1,000 engineers. Our average response time on high profile cases is 90 seconds, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Our cost model is about 50 to 90% of the cost savings compared to paying PeopleSoft. We do a lot more than PeopleSoft does as well by doing tax and legal and regulatory updates, performance tuning, how-to questions, support for customizations and automations that even you write. So much better support experience. But then, just after that in 2005, we realized this is not just special to PeopleSoft. Every single enterprise software company out there has this exact same problem of charging a masterful amount of money and providing low quality subpar support. So now we've evolved our company into supporting almost every ERP platform and database platform and middleware platform that you can imagine. SAP, anything Oracle, open source, commercial, databases, cloud products, and the list goes on. So as we've gone through that, we have then, in the previous slide, we have now grown to a $420 million company, right? We have about 5,000 signed clients. So as we grow that portfolio of these products we've now started adding additional services as well at the request of our customers. So now they said, hey, so now that you can do that ITIL level 4 support that the vendor used to do for me, can you just take the whole thing for me and manage it? Just do a full application managed services for it. So we got into that business. So now we provide that single hand to shake for all things when it comes to support or resolution or day-to-day maintenance or monitoring of the environment. We also provide a slew of security solutions as well to protect those ERPs, regardless of what version that you're on. So part of the value proposition that we offer is that we don't give you mandatory dates that you have to upgrade or move to a cloud by a certain date or you're not going to be supported. We'll support you for whatever version that you want for 15, 20 years, if you wanted to, right? We also do a bunch of connect and interoperability and compatibility solutions so that we guarantee that if you're using that ERP and you need to connect it to something else, we'll make sure that it works without you needing to upgrade the ERP itself. We have some observability and management solution as well, health monitoring, alerting, and detection. And then also we've wrapped across with an entire suite of professional services and consulting to do additional functionality. So you can think of anything all ERP and databases, we provide a litany of services around that. So I do a lot of these events all over the world, so what I want to kind of show you is some of the themes that I've been hearing, see if it resonates with you. And probably the biggest thing that I'm seeing right now is the environment that we're in is so unpredictable that we have right now with the wars and pandemics and sanctions and the talent shortages, and the cybersecurity nightmare that we're in, the supply chain nightmare that we're in, the rising inflation rates, right? All of these things are kind of happening, and we're not necessarily a stranger to any one of those things, but the uniqueness of this situation is that they're all happening at the same time, right? So we're going to talk about how people are handling that situation, because at the same time, with that backdrop, we still have to make sure that we continue to remain profitable and growth. So we're going to see this slight change of just maniacally focusing on profitability and growth to protecting that profitability and growth in this uncertain time when you don't know what's around the corner. And that's becoming a little bit more of an important measure for businesses today. And at the same time, we're seeing these ERP vendors going into everybody's offices and saying, hey, we want you to abandon your on-premise software that you have today, throw it in the trash, and now completely re-implement it into their software as a service, rented tenant model, right? And kind of re-implement all that. So we've got to figure out what we're going to do about all these things that are happening at the same time, because at the same time, we have to, if we're going to protect ourselves from uncertainty, we have to be agile and quick to change. And we have to understand, how does that fit into a potential cloud migration? And we need to invest in other priorities into the business. A lot of things that I hear, of course, a lot of AI, but also there's improving the customer experience seems to be really a hot topic. Of course, cybersecurity challenges as well. And we want to be able to optimize and understand what we can optimize with our current systems today. So if you take a look at what these ERP vendors are doing to try to high pressure their customers into moving into these locked-in clouds, right? Perpetual ownership of license that you have on premises today, that you own forever, throw that in the trash, start all the way over, and re-implement everything that you have as a rented subscription-based model, only to have the same, similar, or less functionality in what you started with 3 years ago. This is a hard pill to swallow, and you can see 99% of the CIOs and CTOs report concerns over implementing that vendor subscription-based model. 42% are concerned about being locked in to this. So I'm going to show you how we kind of go through some of this stuff as well. But if you take a look at how 74% of these leaders are still laser focused on optimizing their existing systems today before going out and buying something new. And that's very important. So now let's just take a look. Again, we talked about this backdrop of everything that's changing. And how do we now change from these geopolitical issues, the business and technology issues? How do we protect ourselves from this uncertainty with this backdrop of cloud, with this backdrop of lock-in models, and how do we reconcile all that? And what do we do with all of this stuff? So what I want to be able to talk to you a little bit is about how we're going to move from a cost-based center to a profit center. And we're going to talk about that by understanding the current landscape of the current industry that we have today. We're going to talk about how we're going to boost agility through a modular-based structure, and how we're going to compare ROI of a bunch of different options that will achieve the same business objectives. Because our ERP customers, all ERP customers, are in this crossroads. They really only have two choices here, in general, two choices. First thing they can do is they can follow that vendor-driven roadmap, which means drop everything, take away your licenses, reconvert to the subscription-based model. You're going to now be completely in one monolithic vendor as a rented tenant. Invent at the speed of that one vendor, right? You're going to be able to be innovative for whenever they decide to put in features and functionality. That's when you'll get them, right? And you'll be forced to go through continuous upgrades. Or I think what a lot of savvy customers are doing now is following what we call the business-driven roadmap, not one that's forced by the vendor. So now we can use that to reduce the total cost of ownership by using best-in-breed and best-fit solutions that's going to best deliver the business outcomes at the costs that we're willing to pay, and the modularity and the agility and the replaceability that we need without that lock-in. So that's the key, right? Getting the best business outcomes without the lock-in in a way that you reserve your right to change your dang mind if you want to and need to, and if the business needs to do that. How we do that is we do this through a modular-based approach. Gartner calls this composable, if you've seen some of their documentation on this. And it's really put into three different kind of parts. It's a business architecture approach. So you can think of this as how you organize your organization through teams and business processes. And you do that in kind of a modular way. So that if a business process or a team is no longer working for you, you can simply manipulate that team, get rid of that team, or replace that team with something else with the least amount of disruption without having to reorg your entire environment or throw everything out and rip out everything and start all over with a new staffing structure. So the idea of this kind of modular-based thing is, if you get a flat tire on the car, we want to be able to change the tire on that car without having to abandon the entire car and have to go get a new car just because the tire was flat. It's a whole kind of guiding principle here. The other one is with modular technologies. That means using best fit technologies that are going to give the business outcomes that we need in the most cost-effective way. Finding specialists, IT solutions that are going to deliver that one individual thing that you need in such a way that if it's no longer working, you can remove it and replace it with something else without having to rip everything else out in order to do that. Because vendors change, right? We just heard of ChatGPT, what, 5 months ago? Right? What's around the corner, we don't know. So we have to be able to know that we need to replace things if we need to replace them. And the third part of this is vendors. So using the right vendor to deliver the specific business outcomes that we need in the best cost in such a way that you can fire them if they are not working for you and replace them with another vendor without having to rip out your entire ecosystem, right? Which comes when you do this one big monolithic vendor that's going to be all things to everybody. You no longer have that resolution to change that tire anymore, do you? It's the entire car becomes that field replaceable unit. So this is the kind of guiding principles about that. And how that applies to the ERP is, I think, people traditionally, the ERP was one vendor. We're an Oracle shop, we're an SAP shop, we're an IBM shop. And it's just a bunch of modules into one kind of monolithic platform. And this was the definition of the ERP. Now I think we can look at the ERP much differently, and you can say probably the ERP is pretty good here within the core of the ERP that's sitting on top of a database that can be manipulated, the hardware that can be manipulated. And then we extend that transactional system with additional options and features that we might need coming from additional products. So we might want to add some analytics, we might want to add CRM. Maybe we might want to take out HR altogether in our ERP and use Workday for that, but leave the core transactional system alone, right? And then on top of that, we want to put in some more cloud, some enabling technologies, a cloud, RPA, any kind of low code, or improving the user experience. This now is the new definition of the ERP, and we want to be able to manipulate everything at every single granularity level in here as we evolve. But the idea is to use the best of what we have today, and if it's not going to work in the ERP that we have today, and we need some sort of gap delta functionality, we only put our time and money and resources in just getting that gap difference, not ripping all of this out so that you can achieve that one gap little difference, right? So keep what we have, get the best use of it. It's a transactional system. It has 20 years of data of your sales, 20 years of data of your finance, 20 years of data of your HR, 20 years of data of your supply chain, right? Keep what this thing works so well to do, and then extend only where needed without having to rip out everything for a 3-year-long project and $30 million, and then you just realize we have the same, similar, or less functionality in which we started with. But we did get that one little gap, right? So why are we talking about this now? Why is this so important right now? And in order for me to go through that, I've got to kind of go through a quick little history lesson of ERPs. For those that may have been around the block a little bit like I have, if you remember when ERP started 30 years ago, maybe more, there wasn't a lot of vendors around. The power and leverage was all with the customers. So if you wanted to outsource your managed services provider, who was there? IBM, Accenture, maybe? If you wanted to outsource your database managed services, there's maybe a couple more. If you wanted your support, had to go to the vendor. If you wanted your software, have to go to the vendor. If you want to get your database, have to go to the vendor. If you wanted infrastructure, Dell, IBM, Sun Microsystems, that's about it. So the customer had all the cards, and it was a race to the bottom in these very huge competitive landscapes. And it was a huge competition to provide the best service for the best value. And if Dell pissed you off, you just said the words IBM and you got what you wanted. It was fairly that easy, right? So let's fast forward today. Where we are today. Now the vendors want to take, this vendor wants to take all of this, and they want to put it in this big 10-year long contract. A good example is the SAP RISE program, or maybe even Oracle Fusion, where you're going to be taking application managed services, that's going to be baked into the contract. Your database managed services, that's included. Your support included. Your software converted to a subscription now. Your database is with the vendor, and oh yeah, the infrastructure is included. So this may at face value look, this is like the easy button. I can call 1-800-ORACLE or 1-800-SAP for everything. But we lost the resolution and the agility of the modular-based strategy. You can't change any of this stuff without having to scorched earth the entire thing because you want to change your infrastructure. Or you want to use another managed services provider because you signed a long-term contract that locks all this stuff in. So you've completely lost the availability of the options available to you for the next 10 years or 5 years or however long you signed that contract, right? So procurement might think this is a really great idea because now instead of signing 6 contracts, they sign 1, right? But what did you do to the business? What did you do? What cement shoes did that come with? And if there's anybody from procurement here, I'm sorry, but I don't care if you have to sign 6 contracts. I don't care. We're going to do what's best for the business. So here's the recommendation. We do a modular-based strategy. You want managed services? We're going to go to a specialized managed services provider. If you want a specialized database managed services, you go find a provider to do that. It might even be the same company. If you want support, you go find a specialized support company. If you want software, you got to get it from the vendor. It's their software. You license it. If you want a database, same. But infrastructure, well, there's so many options now for infrastructure. Amazon, Azure, Google. You can go anywhere now, right? So go find those vendors that are going to give you. Let them compete and do it in a way where you can fire them if they're not working out. So if you take a look at the people that we interviewed, 57 of the CIOs and CTOs believe that digital transformation does not necessarily equal rip and replace. And I think we make a lot of mistakes that we think that digital transformation means taking away everything and rebuilding on some new platform, when really the decision tree should be this. We have a business requirement. Can it be done in our existing system? Yes or no? And I don't think people do this step. They think they have a new business requirement. They need a new solution to do that. This software is some of the most robust, feature-rich, and it's designed to be customizable. I guarantee you there's going to be cases that when you have a new business requirement, you can do it in what you have today for a fraction of the cost of a huge, expensive upgrade or a replatform in what you have today. You've got to make sure you take this step and see. Now, if it can't be done in your system today, then okay, then we're going to find this one business requirement, and we're going to say all the different ways that we can solve that business requirement. And there's a whole bunch of different ways that we can do it. A whole bunch of solutions, configurations, bolt-ons, customizations that you can do to achieve this. And you look at all the different avenues, and you pick the one that's going to be the path of least resistance. But you don't go and replace everything. You're only putting time, resources, and effort into only the business requirement, and that's all. So now instead of a 3-year-long project to rip and replace everything for that one business requirement, you have that new business requirement in a couple of months. And instead of $30 million, it's $200,000. Right? So this is how you get the more ROI. And I want to give you an example here. This is an SAP example. But it's the same concept. So this is a customer that came to us and said they have the four main modules: materials management, FICO, sales and distribution, production planning. Okay? They said that they're growing now and they want to start bringing in a better enterprise solution for HR, customer relationship management, and warehouse management. So they called SAP and they said, we want to buy these modules from you. What does SAP say? Well, first you're going to have to go to our RISE program. You have to upgrade everything to S/4HANA. You have to move these 4 modules over. And then we'll sell you the 3 other modules, and then you can go configure them. That was the only choice. That's the only choice that they thought that they had. And when we did the analysis for them, we looked at that and said, okay, if you did that, that's going to be about a $13.5 million journey that's going to have an ROI of about 200%. Not too bad. But then they called us, and we said, Actually, if we look at your business requirements, Workday is going to work really well for you for HR. CRM can be just completely solved with Salesforce, and you can do warehouse management with Manhattan and extend what you have today without ripping everything else. And now we have a project that costs $5 million and has a return on investment of 680%. Just an example of how some of these things can work. When you do all the options and you look at all the options and you make ROI-based decisions and not just anything just based on cost. In this case, it was a win-win, but you have to look at all your options. Both of these options achieved the same business outcome. That's the important thing to see. It achieved the same business outcome. So you don't always have to take the red pill. You don't always have to take the green pill. There's ways that you can do things in order to achieve things by looking at all the different things that are available out there and doing this level of analysis. Because you're not doing this level of analysis, don't go to the board of directors. They're going to laugh you right out of the room. You better have these numbers. Okay, so now let's just talk about the evolution of turning IT systems into innovation engines. And I'm going to show you how you can categorize your systems, evaluate your different options, and how you can start focusing on systems of innovation, okay? Here's the first thing that you do. This is really great for new CIOs, because the new CIOs, the first thing you have to do is understand what did they just inherit, right? So you take all the systems that you have, you put them in a spreadsheet. There's what, 100, 200 systems? And you're going to put them into 3 different buckets. Bucket 1, is this a system of record or a transactional-based system? A non-differentiating system. It's running back office. You're paying people. You're processing payroll. You're closing your books. You're doing PO systems, right? These aren't things that are moving the needle at all for the company, right? Mission critical? Of course. Mandatory? Absolutely. Can it ever go down? No, never. But it's a commodity. It's not a differential. You're not contributing to the bottom line with these systems. You're just running the business for that, right? So that's the one bucket. The second bucket is this a system of differentiation? Are we using this system such that we have a competitive advantage because we're doing something different than our competitors? Maybe we're doing something a little bit faster. Maybe we have better analytics than they do that can help. Maybe we have some AI in there that's helping us make some decisions, and it's differentiating the things that we are doing. It's giving us that competitive edge over our competitors. The third bucket is this a system of innovation? So this is lab environments. It's wild, wild west. We're playing with stuff. We're tinkering with things. And we're seeing if we land on something that is going to be such a game changer for our industry that we are going to be completely disruptive. Okay? So that's the exercise. Now you have all 200 systems into one of these 3 buckets. And here's the attributes of all these things, right? You have the business processes of systems of records. They're integrated. You know, the pace of change is very slow, 10, 20 years. The life cycle is more than 10 years. The planning horizons more than 7 years. The stable systems, it's just running back office. When you get into differentiation, you say, hey, now we're doing a cycle of every 2 to 5 years. When you look at system innovations, it might be gone in 3 months. So this is the attributes of these kinds of systems so that you know where your stakeholders are, where your funding is going to come from, and how you're going to move the needle. Okay, next exercise is this. Now that you have all these things into 3 different buckets, now you're going to do timesheets, and you're going to map it on top of this. And you're going to find out where you're spending all the time, money, and resources in all of these systems. And here's what I bet you're going to find out when you do this. You're going to take a look at your systems of innovation and differentiation of records, and I bet you'll find that 90% of the time and money and resources that you are spending are on these systems of records that are not moving the needle for your company at all, which only leaves 5 or 10% of the resources left over for the systems that actually do move the needle for the record, right? Or for the systems innovation and differentiation. Gartner calls these companies that are surviving. They're just limping along, they're surviving along, they're maybe putting a little bit of differentiation in innovation, they might be incrementally growing because their back office is drowning in things that aren't giving them the competitive advantage that they need. So the smart CIOs that are coming in are doing everything they possibly can to flip those numbers. And we want to be able to now be spending as much time as we possibly can on the things that are moving the needle for the company and get this the heck off our plate. Why are we spending so much time talking about what version these systems are on? I don't care. Are we paying people? Are we closing our books? Are we processing POs? Why are we spending so much time saying, well, this is version X and it's not version Y? Right? It's absolutely, with 73%, these are Gartner numbers, 73% are on systems that run, which is what I call systems of record, just the systems of run, right? So we want to be able to start moving from the surviving to a thriving and start questioning projects that aren't completely focused on this. And is a 3 or 4 year long cloud journey to lose your perpetual license and then go to a software as a service just to have the same functionality that you have? Is that anywhere close to where we want to be on this? Who cares? Now, cloud is great, don't get me wrong. Cloud is great, but it's great for net new customers that are like in spreadsheet hell and they need quick functionality. They're starting their ERP journey on this, great. But for a lot of us that have this stuff for 10, 20 years, they've customized the heck out of it with unique logic and unique business rules that's unique to us, has data in our system for 20 years that you can't buy that data. That's unique to us. I'd rather keep that data, throw some AI at it, and see what kind of stuff it spits out, because it's unique to us. Right? Are you going to take 30 years of data to the cloud? Doubt it. So here's an exercise that one of our customers did, this exact same exercise. You can see examples of systems that we categorized into systems of innovation, systems that differentiate, and systems of record. And it makes a lot of sense. eProc, payment systems, publishing systems, invoicing systems, compliance systems, HR systems, regulatory systems, ERP, payroll systems. These are all systems of record that don't differentiate the company. And what's he going to do? Outsource every single one of it. Get it off the plate. Don't put a single extra penny into that at all. No reason to upgrade it. No reason to move that to a cloud. Get it out to a third-party support. Get it to somebody else's problem. And instead of dealing with the nuts and bolts of this thing, you're dealing with service-level agreements and service-level agreements only. And that's the only thing you got to worry about. That now frees up all of this stuff to get in the house. AI systems, tracking systems, CRM, e-commerce, EDI and ETL platforms, complete data orchestration layers, zero trust security models, right? Blockchain, predictive analytics, power management, ESG environments. These all things are the things that they consider innovative and differentiative that they want to now keep in-house because it's unique to them. You can't just go out and buy this stuff. Unique to them, and reallocate the people to go from here to here. And it really works well for retention as well, because nobody wants to work on the old stuff, they want to work on the new stuff. So it's a win-win for everybody. So at the end of the day, what I'm challenging everyone here is to look at these projects when someone comes and says the word, we want to modernize. We want to re-platform. We want to re-implement. We want to redo. We want to lift and shift. We're going to take the level to Cloud 2.0 or whatever jargon that you want to use. That does nothing for the company, because where I'm going to tell you is that if you don't have a board-ready plan, is this project accelerating growth and increasing our revenues? Is this project going to lower my costs and improve profitability? Is this going to reduce risk? Is this going to take market share from competitors? Is this going to achieve better compliances? What is this going to do to impact our corporate KPIs that we measure the success of the business? And if you're not checking these boxes, good luck going through to the board and getting approval for that money without evaluating all the options to be able to get all of these questions answered and make sure that you're doing the right thing. Okay, thank you very much. I'm out of time. Appreciate it. Thank you.